Chapter 7. Yameena and Abdur Rahim. Abdur Rahim and Yameena had two sons, and they named them Abdur Razak and Abdul Ghaffur. Their rule became renowned for justice throughout the land. Not only were the people happy, but prosperity was everywhere. Following the example of Umar, they began going on night patrols together, because they observed that Umar often modified state policy based on what he heard people discussing among themselves at night. One incident related about Umar is that one night, as he was passing by a house, he heard an infant crying and saw him in the arms of his mother. He asked the mother, "Why is the baby crying?" She replied, "Because he is hungry." He therefore said, "Then feed the baby." As he walked away, the baby cried even louder, so he came back and told the mother again to feed the baby, and then walked away. When the baby cried louder still, he returned and asked the mother, "Why don't you feed the baby?" She replied that the caliph had set a stipend higher for babies who had been weaned than for infants who were suckling, and as a result, women were weaning their infants early. Umar was ashamed of this decision, and the next morning, after Fajr, he announced a change in policy. He made the stipend for all infants the same and encouraged mothers to nurse their children longer. Abdur Rahim and Yameena were on patrol one night when they overheard a conversation in which several men were discussing tampering with the weights used in selling flour and rice. One of the men suggested drilling a couple of small holes in the measuring tablets so that the measures would be lighter, enabling them to profit by selling less flour than the weight indicated. Abdur Rahim was enraged at these cheaters and wanted to confront them immediately, but Yameena prevailed upon him by urging him to think as Umar had done. First, learn why people were tempted to cheat, then fix the cause. The very next day, Abdur Rahim called the shopkeepers to the palace and asked them why they were planning to cheat the citizens by changing the weights. The shopkeepers replied that, since the king had fixed the price of rice and flour so low, they were unable to make any profit selling them and were concerned for the survival of their businesses. They said they would not resort to cheating if the king would establish a fairer price for those commodities. Abdur Rahim was upset that no one had brought this to his attention, and realized that people in the palace only brought news they thought would please him. He adjusted the price of the commodities so that the shopkeepers would not have to cheat, and he set up a council where common folks from outside the palace could bring issues of concern directly to him. Yameena hoped that she would be blessed with the kind of opportunity that had come to Umar's wife, Kulsum. One night, when Umar was making a circuit on the outskirts of the city incognito, he heard screams coming from a tent and saw a man sitting outside. He stopped and asked the man what the matter was, and the man said, "It doesn't concern you, so get lost." Umar asked him a second time, and again the man replied that it did not concern him and to go away. Umar insisted a third time, and the man finally said that his wife was giving birth, and it had nothing to do with him, so leave. Umar asked if there was anyone to help her, and the man replied, "No." Umar rushed to his house and asked his wife, Kulsum, if she wished for an opportunity for paradise, and she replied, "Yes, of course, my husband." So he told her to gather whatever flour and oil they had in the house and took her to the tent of the woman who was in the midst of giving birth. He told the man to build a fire and began to cook food for the family himself. A short while later, Kulsum cried out from inside the tent, "Ya Amir ul Momineen, tell your friend that he has a beautiful baby." The man outside was thunderstruck. This was the Amir ul Momineen who had been cooking food for him, and his wife was inside helping with the birth of his son. All of this without ever telling him who they were. Masha Allah, what an extraordinary man! Unfortunately for Yameena, no such dramatic episode came to pass on her night rounds, but she was able to undertake opportunities to help some of the poor from time to time, just as Umar had done. On one occasion, Umar saw a woman stirring a pot on the stove over and over again. There were young children crying in the background, so he stopped and asked the woman, "What is the matter with the children?" She replied, "The children are hungry." He asked, "What are you cooking that is taking so long?" She said that it was only water she was stirring, pretending to cook, since she had nothing else to give them. The children, seeing her stir the pot, were hoping for food, but soon they would grow tired of crying and fall asleep. Umar was so upset that he raced back to his house, gathered flour and oil and other foods, and brought them back to the woman. He cooked the food himself and fed the children without ever letting them know who he was or expecting anything in return. Yameena kept this in mind, and whenever an opportunity arose to lend a helping hand, she was always there with her sons. These were precious teaching moments for her children, lessons in serving the poor. While they learned to master the Quran and Sunnah, she had her father, the soldier, teach them the intricacies of martial arts, just as she herself had been taught. Abdur Razak, the eldest son, succeeded his father as king, but Abdul Ghaffur decided to make hijrath to the western provinces to spread the message of Islam.